Hiya, right guys, it's me, English Young Ban. Today I got a special English edition of 영국 양반 here. We are coming up to the end of the year, so I want to give a kind of, for this month, I think it'll be fun to kind of review the year, basically. Look back at 2025. Anyway, if you're new here, normally I speak Korean on this channel. I live in Seoul in Korea, but I'm from England. And usually, if you watch this channel, you might know, I talk about a lot of old music. And honestly, that's because that's what I listen to, mostly, you know. I haven't listened to new music for quite a long time. What's the newest LP I've got? I think the newest thing I've got is the Arctic Monkeys album from 3 years ago. And before that, it's all old stuff in it. Anyway, this year, something amazing happened, right? I found a new album released this year that I think is really good. It's wicked. The album is Essex Honey by Blood Orange. It's a pretty weird cover, isn't it? Anyway, I think this album is really good. It's the best album this year. If you want to find out why, listen to the end because I will tell you why. First of all, quick introduction, right, about who this Blood Orange guy is. His real name is David. The name that he calls himself day to day is Dev Hynes. It's Dev Hynes. He's a guy who I guess grew up in Essex. Although I and the rest of the world first heard about him, or first knew about him, in about 2005, which was, okay, this is a really cool thing. I think for my Korean audience, this is kind of an English indie music, a quick partial lesson, because honestly, like the UK indie music scene in the 2000s, I think was like one of the peaks of human civilization. And not enough people talk about it at that time, you know? There was some amazing stuff. Anyway, 2005. This guy, now Blood Orange, then was in a band called Test Icicles. Which, in 2005, they were like really big. If you're not aware, 2005 was the year when Arctic Monkeys made an earthquake in England by coming from nowhere and being the biggest thing in the world. It was very exciting. Anyway, the Arctic Monkeys were from a northern city called Sheffield, and they were a band who got famous without the help of the music journalists, who until that point were very happy being in charge of everything. So they quickly tried to grab hold of the narrative again. That was how things worked back then. And they thought, okay, we got this popular working class northern band, Arctic Monkeys. This could be a new Oasis thing. And if you got Oasis, what do you need? Blur. So these idiots, they looked around for like a southern or London new Blur to kind of be the rivals to the northern Arctic Monkeys and sell lots of newspapers or sell lots of NME magazines. The band they chose was Test Icicles, which is really funny. I actually quite like Test Icicles still. But okay, they were kind of the members said they were a joke band. They were like metal, screamo, indie dance madness. Anyway, in 2006, right after Arctic Monkeys' first album came out, testicles broke up and said, "Ha, it was all a joke. None of that was serious. Bye bye." That was it. A year later, in 2007, my man, now Blood Orange, reappeared with the name Lightspeed Champion. Now, Lightspeed Champion, to me, honestly, he was my idol as a teenage kid. He was like the coolest guy in the world. Lightspeed Champion was kind of folk pop music. I don't know what you compare it to. But I know he had this kind of, he just seemed super cool. The songs are all about like falling in love with girls but not talking to them or something. He was also really good at guitar, which made him very... Get this. Anyway, at the time, I was living in the countryside, in a place called Gloucestershire. But I was born in London, and I always thought of myself as a Londoner. And I didn't like being in the countryside. I was like, I want to be in London. I hate the countryside. The countryside is like small-minded. People weren't into music in the way that I was. I thought in London, if I could go there, I could be free, be among cool people. And Dev Hynes, Lightspeed Champion, now Blood Orange, he represented that whole lifestyle to me. It's very aspirational. And his album, he released an album which I listened to over and over and over again every night. It was really it's such a nice album, you know. It's all kind of folky, lots of violin, acoustic guitar. I don't know. I would say it's still good today. Anyway, in the end, I did move to London, and my life was really great. But then a few years later, Lightspeed Champion made a new project called Blood Orange, which was again a big evolution. He went from this screamo metal punk band to folk pop guy to Blood Orange, which was this kind of R&B pop thing, a kind of 80s 90s R&B revival thing, kind of like Prince, but I'm not sure that's a good touchstone. It was just very like, you know, I didn't dig it, you know, honestly. I wasn't at the time. I was really going down the 80s 90s guitar band thing. I was really into like the Replacements, if you know them, and Guided by Voices, even like what bands that were around at the time, Deer Hunter. I just, you know, there were so many bands that I liked. I didn't have time for like some R&B pop project. So, you know, I parted ways with Dev Hynes. I thought, cool, you know, you do what you want to do. I respect it, fine. Not interested. Many years later, we come to the present day, and I was actually like, researching YouTube stuff for this channel, actually. And I was looking at like other music channels, and I came across, just by a random chance, this interview with Blood Orange, Dev Hynes, from this year, and he was talking about a new album that he's made this year. I was like, cool, I check it out. I click on it. I was like, wow, it's like seeing an old friend, you know? It's good to see that he's still doing well. And he starts talking about this new album and the kind of the influences and the motivations for him making it. You know, and he said some things that really caught my interest. First of all, he was saying that the album, that his mother had passed away recently, and the album was kind of processing that, and that was very sad to me, because in his Lightspeed Champion days, actually, I used to watch a lot of his interviews, and he would talk about his mum all the time. And he had one song dedicated to her. So, you know, he's kind of, I don't know, there's kind of some touching bond there. Secondly, he was talking about the musical influences on this album, and what sounded very interesting to me, he was talking about like the Smiths and like a lot of like 80s bands, 80s indie bands, which I thought, maybe he's kind of amalgamizing all of his influences. He's not going super straight down the R&B route. He's kind of bringing back some of the old Lightspeed Champion indie folky stuff. Very interesting. Then he said something which blew my mind. He said there's a song on here, track 10, called Westerberg. If you know who... yeah, maybe you don't know. Paul Westerberg was the singer of the band The Replacements, who I just told you was one of my favourite bands ever. This guy, he's actually... I was like, Replacements, Dev Hynes, Lightspeed Champion, bye. I ordered the album immediately without listening to a single song. I was like, I got it. Sold. There's a bit more. The album, there's a kind of concept on the album. You can maybe get a sense of it if we open it up. It's a kind of album, kind of romanticizing the English countryside. Now, that's very interesting to me, because, like I told you, when I was living in the countryside, Dev Hynes to me was a kind of representative of the London lifestyle that I wanted at the time. Now, both he and I are a bit older, and actually I miss the countryside. I would rather live in the countryside than the city, and it sounds like he's come to the same conclusion, which makes the whole story have this kind of perfect symmetry, where we've both come back to where we started. Anyway, that's the introduction into the album itself. One thing I haven't said yet is Blood Orange, it turns out, is huge in the music world. This guy, Dev Hynes, in the time when I've been not paying attention, he has become a kind of songwriter and producer extraordinaire, which is very interesting. It means that when you hear this album, you know you are hearing like the best of 2025 in terms of just skill and ability. The production is world class. This sounds unbelievably good. I've only heard it. This is the vinyl. I've only listened to this. Probably sounds good however you listen to it. It's just lush. It's got all these, you know, I said before he's a really good guitar player. There's not that much guitar though. A little bit, but not much. It's more like lots of classical instruments. Cello, flute, some saxophone, some keyboards, some really cool drum beats as well. What else can I say about it? Don't know how to actually review the album now. It's beautiful. The songs, it's got a really kind of dreamy feeling. You know, the songs are all quite short. And what happens is a lot is some melody will start in one song, disappear, and then kind of appear again in another song several tracks later. It gives this really kind of, you know, it's not only gorgeous, lush production and instrumentals, but it's got this whole kind of dreamy, swirly feeling that I think it's an achievement of humanity. Not many albums ever have kind of got to this kind of swirly feeling. I want to say something about the singing. Dev Hynes, Dev Blood Orange. His singing on this, in all of Blood Orange songs actually, it's kind of weird. You know, I think he used to sing a lot better when he was Lightspeed Champion. It seemed like he's kind of got this thing on, but it works on the album. He does this thing on purpose where he sings just very. There's no emotion. There's not much emotion in the singing. It's quite just like hitting the notes. He's singing like his voice is used like a keyboard. He's just hitting the notes. An example, like this on track 6, Vivid Light. There's this melody, and it sounds like kids singing in a schoolyard. It's like ba da 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 ba ba da 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 da. He used to have more of a growl to his voice back in Lightspeed Champion. A kind of indie, not but like he would push himself. I think his whole point with this album is as a kind of melody writer, just hit the melody so it gets in your head. Then there's lots of guest vocals, and honestly, some of them have that like R&B voice that I don't like, but on this album it's fine. It reminds me of being a kid and like the pop music. It's more like none of the singers or anything are really in the driving seat. It's like a big production, the whole thing. And so the vocals as well, they're more like kind of memories that pop up in your head and leave an impression. Anyway, I reckon that'll do. It's a beautiful album. If you want something new to listen to, I recommend this. It's 10 out of 10. 2025 best album. This. Check it out.